Welcome to the deep dive. If you've been following the news, it's impossible to miss the intense tension around the U.S. and Iran.
Absolutely. It feels like it's constantly simmering, right?
Exactly. There's this constant buzz, this feeling of potential conflict. But, given all the headlines, you might think direct U.S. strikes are already happening. So what's the surprising truth our sources are actually telling us?
Yeah, that's really the core question here. And what the sources show is, well, it's a much more nuanced picture than maybe the daily headlines suggest. It kind of challenges those easy assumptions about what conflict really means here.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then. Cut through that noise, look at the specifics from the sources, and give you a clear, precise understanding of what is actually happening and what defines this, incredibly high-stakes standoff.
Right. And diving straight in, based on what we have, here's the key thing, the big distinction. As of June 23, 2025, there are no confirmed U.S. military strikes directly against Iran itself.
Wow, okay, that's critical. No direct U.S. strikes. So if they aren't attacking, what has the U.S. been doing? Because the presence feels huge.
It is huge. What they've done is significantly escalate their posture. We're talking major deployments.
Yeah.
B-2 stealth bombers, for instance, sent to Diego
The
Garcia.
ones that can carry bunker busters.
Exactly. Those are serious assets designed for hardened targets. But, and this is key, it's all described officially as preventative deterrence. It signals readiness, a warning maybe, but not active fighting.
So saber rattling, but not actually using the saber.
That's one way to put it. U.S. defense officials keep saying American forces are defensive only. They maintain they're not engaging in offensive operations against Iran.
Okay, but then how do we square that with some of the rhetoric we heard, particularly from the Trump administration? Threats of bombing like never seen before, demands for unconditional surrender. That sounds pretty offensive.
It's a really sharp contrast, isn't it? Incredibly strong words. But even then, behind the scenes, defense officials were clarifying that, well, the final decisions hadn't been made. No actual strike orders were given.
So a gap between the public talk and the military reality, at least from the U.S. side.
Precisely. The rhetoric was definitely aggressive, but the U.S. military actions themselves stayed in that deterrence and readiness box.
Okay, so if the U.S. isn't launching direct strikes, who is? Because there has been military action. Our sources point elsewhere for the main airstrikes, right?
That's right. The primary actor conducting airstrikes in the region has actually been Israel.
Ah, okay. And what have they been targeting?
According to sources, they've been hitting Iranian military sites and significantly nuclear infrastructure, things like air bases, uranium enrichment sites, missile facilities.
Pretty direct action.
Yes. And in some cases, it seems these strikes were supported by things like Mossad-led drone sabotage operations, so a multi-pronged effort.
And Iran's response to Israel, has they just absorbed these hits?
Oh, no. They've retaliated. They've launched missiles at Israeli locations. And importantly, they've issued these very clear warnings that any U.S. bases in the region supporting Israel, quote, will not be safe.
Okay, so that brings the U.S. back into the danger zone, even if indirectly.
It definitely raises the stakes for U.S. personnel and assets.
Which leads to this really interesting question, doesn't it? Tensions are sky high. You've got this massive U.S. military buildup, stark threats flying back and forth, Israel and Iran actively exchanging fire. Why haven't we seen the U.S. cross that line into direct conflict? Why just high alert?
Yeah, this is where you need to look beyond just the military moves. There are several key factors at play, according to our sources.
Okay, like what?
Well, first off, believe it or not, diplomacy. Even amidst all this tension, the U.S. actually reopened indirect nuclear talks.
Really? What was this?
Between April and mid-June. In places like Oman and Rome, the explicit goal was trying to hammer out a deal specifically to avoid a military conflict.
Huh. So a diplomatic track running in parallel to the military posturing.
Exactly. Which leads to the second point, that military buildup, the B-2s, the carriers, the refuelers, all of it, it's consistently framed as posturing, demonstrating capability, showing resolve, deterrence, but not actually engaging. It's a strategic signal, not the first punch.
Okay, diplomacy and deterrence posture. Anything else?
Yes. Third, you can't ignore the domestic and global pressure. Sources mention U.S. forces being evacuated from certain areas, international leaders calling for restraint, and, public opinion polls generally showing support for diplomacy over another war.
Right, so those factors together kind of explain why it's been deterrence and readiness, not direct U.S. strikes.
That seems to be the picture painted by the sources, yes.
So let's summarize this for you, our listener. What we're seeing is this incredibly tense standoff. Lots of power projection, lots of deterrent signals from the U.S. side. Meanwhile, Israel is actively engaged in military strikes against Iran, and Iran is retaliating against Israel. But crucially, as of now, no confirmed direct U.S. military attacks on Iran itself.
And maybe this leaves us with a thought to chew on based on everything we've seen. Considering these diplomatic efforts were happening and the clear U.S. focus seems to be deterrence, how might the nature of the situation, these non-strikes, change? How could it escalate if those diplomatic off-ramps, disappeared entirely?
That's a sobering question. Definitely a lot to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We encourage you to keep digging into the complexities of international relations.